Hi everyone, today I want to talk about how to set up your budget and how to review it so it changes as your life changes. If you're in the situation where you're spending more money than what's coming in, you've got three options. Reduce your expenses, increase your income, or number three, do both. But I'm getting a bit ahead of myself here. The simple truth is that you can't spend more than you earn. You have to know how much you're earning and you have to know how much you're spending. Let's start with income or earnings. The majority of people will earn a salary, a fixed amount paid to them each week or fortnight or month. You'll be able to see how much you're paid by looking at your payslip or just looking at how much goes into your bank account from your employer. Some people are on a salary with commission. Now this is where you're paid a smaller set amount, but you get a percentage of any sales you make to customers. The theory being that the harder you work, the more customers you get in, the more sales you make, the higher your reward. Now this is good for the business as it increases their revenue and it's good for motivated salespeople. Other people might be shift workers. I used to work in hotels doing night shift and we receive extra money, penalty rates, for working nights or weekends. Now if you're in either of these last two situations, then it's best to calculate your base income and use this as your budgeted income. Any extra is a bonus and can go to paying off debt, saving for a goal, adding to your emergency fund, or for a treat for yourself or a loved one. So now you know your income, you need to do some work in recording your expenses. This is where you're going to need to dig around through your paperwork or emails and find any of your previous bills. If you're just starting out living on your own, you'll need to talk to family and friends to get a rough idea of how much your bills might be. Now there's two different types of bills, set and variable. Let's start with the set bills. Set bills don't change each payment, but may increase each year. Gym memberships, mobile phone accounts, subscriptions like Netflix and Stan, they happen monthly. And then you've got things like rates, insurance, health insurance, vehicle insurance, house and contents. They might all be yearly. So it's important to look at the bill and see which one's yearly and which one's monthly. Then there are your variable bills. Variable bills can, and almost always do, change each time as they're based on your use of something that's measured. These bills can include gas, water, electricity. Due to the variable nature of these bills, you're going to need to overestimate how much they will cost so that you can set up a buffer. As these bills can be seasonal, it's best to look at least 1 year's worth if you can, and then take the highest bill as the usual amount. This way, over the year, you'll build up a buffer for when an exceptionally higher bill arrives. Now you've found all your bills, write down how much they are and how often they need to be paid. So now you have the info on your bills, you need to think about your other expenses. These include groceries, clothes, eating out, takeaway, home delivery, and there's lots more. You've also got to think about large one-off expenses, furniture, car, home deposit, repairs to your car or home, medical bills. Some of these can be planned for, but others can be surprises. To live a better, less stressed life, you need to put money aside for these things each time you get paid. So how much do you need to put aside? Well, there are two ways to work this out. Either you can do a detailed analysis, which I'll explain in a second. This is for all of you who love to analyze data, just like me. Or you can make a guesstimate of how much each expense might be. I'll start with the guesstimate. Think about the last 2 to 3 or 4 weeks. What is it that you've bought and how much, roughly, did you spend on these items? Write down each item and try to put them into categories and figure out how much you spent on each of these categories. You may also want to think about purchases you don't make regularly. Clothes for work, birthday and Christmas presents, furniture, towels and sheets. The list can go on. It'd be great to hear from you guys what you spent your money on regularly over the last year. Leave some comments below. Now once you've put together the different categories and worked out a rough guesstimate of what you've spent, you'll put these into your budget. I'll explain this process after we have a look at the detailed analysis approach. Let's look at that now. This process is going to give you a really clear picture of where your money's going. Collect your bank or credit card statements from the last year and categorize every expense. Do it for everything. Now go back and add up all the amounts for each category for each month and the whole year. I'll show you in a second how to do this in Excel, so it's super quick. Now to do this more easily, most banks and credit card companies have the facility online to allow you to export your account data into what's called a CSV file that you can then open up in Excel or Numbers. Now if they don't have it online, call them up, ask them to send you the file or account statements for your purchases over the last year. With the file now in Excel, you might be fortunate that your bank or credit card company has already categorized your spending for you. Some, such as Woolworths credit card, even do subcategories. If they haven't, then it's an easy process to add one. Here I'll add a heading called category. Usually there's a description which provides detail of the merchant. You're going to filter the data and go through each description and give it a category. You might want to start with the ones you recognize as being ones you use most often. For most people, this will be groceries or restaurants and cafes. Once you've done these, you can then work through all the other descriptions and categorize them. This is probably a good time to remind you of some of the different categories. We've got things like groceries, clothes, eating out, takeaway, home delivery, furniture, car expenses, repairs, medical bills. Now, if you can think of another category, leave a comment below. Once this is done, and well done on persevering, you'll want to tally up how much each category is for the 12 months. Let's have a look at a couple of ways you can do this. First is to filter for each category and highlight the amounts that show up on the list. Down the bottom of the screen, a summary of the highlighted data appears. One of these numbers is the total. Record the total on another sheet and then do the process again for the next category, and so on until you have finished all the categories. Another way to do this is to create a table of your categories and use the SUMIF function in Excel. Let's have a look at how to do this. The SUMIF function is really great when you've got long lists of data and you want to find the values or adding up certain ones or certain categories. So here we've got all my categories, and I've got data here just for a month, but I've got all my different categories, and I want to know what's the total of the cafe category. So I use the SUMIF function. So I've got equals and then types SUMIF, and then I put a bracket. Okay, now my range is the D column. Okay, so these are the categories here. So I'm going to put my mouse over the D here and click on that. It highlights the whole column. I'm going to go comma, and then I want to choose cafe. So I want it to look up cafe, and then I want it to sum all the values that link to cafe in this column here. So any value that's next to the word cafe, it is going to add up with any other values that are next to cafe. Close my bracket and hit enter. So what's that done? What that's done is it's added up all the values in my column C and then said that relate to cafe. Now, if I click on this and go to the right hand bottom corner and click and drag, so hold down the mouse key and drag, it's going to copy the formula. And the cool thing is, what it does is it changes it. So it's clothing now. Okay, looking through the two lists for clothing. And then if I look at the next one, it's looking at donations. And the next one, it's looking at education. So it does the whole list, it changes it for you. So you don't have to type in the formula repetitively. So now I've got the values for each category. I've got the totals for each category for a month. You would obviously do this for as long as you can. So whether it's 3 months, 6 months, or a year, to look at what are the values of the year. Now it's important to do it over a year because some things are seasonal. Now that you have category totals over the last 12 months, along with your bills we first looked at, you want to divide these numbers by 48 weeks in the year. Yeah, 48. I know that the year has 52 weeks, but by dividing by 48, you're actually going to put a little bit extra aside each time you get paid. Let's look at how this works. Let's say that you have a quarterly electricity bill. You get the bill and you multiply by 4, or you add up the past 4 electricity bills if you have them. This will give you a yearly total. When you get paid, determines which of the following numbers you should use. If paid weekly, divide by 48. You're treating the year as being 12 months that each have 4 weeks. If paid fortnightly, every 2 weeks, divide by 24. You're treating the year as 12 months with 2 fortnights in each month. If paid monthly, divide by 11. This will put you a month ahead by the end of the year. Now let's look at each of these scenarios in further detail using our electricity bill as an example. So we have our 4 electricity bills for the year and we add them up to get the total of the year. In a spreadsheet, you can put in a formula to add them all up. In Excel, it's equals sum and then the range of the cells. You just highlight them. Let's look at the different pay scenarios. For weekly, we'll put in our first cell the following formula. We then take this weekly amount and multiply it by 52 weeks in the year. We end up with a total for the year. This is more than the total of the bills, and this is what we want. It helps us have a buffer against unexpected bills, as well as allowing us to skim some money off all our different accounts at the end of the year to put towards our emergency fund. My advice with this though is that you should wait until you have enough spare in the account that you could pay the next bill before you skim anything off for your emergency fund. So say with our electricity bill, I'd want to have at least 150 left over. This would pay the largest bill of the year, after having paid my most recent bill. This might take a few years to get to, but the great feeling you get when you can pay a bill and realize that you could also pay the next bill straight away is well worth it. Next, we'll look at fortnightly pays. We put in our cell the following formula. We see that this gives us a total we'll use each fortnight. If we then take this fortnightly amount and multiply it by 26 fortnights in the year, we end up with an amount which is more than the total of the bills, and again, this is what we want. Now with monthly, we do the same process, but we divide by 11. This gives us a little bit more to put aside each month, which will accumulate over the year. You may find that you need to tweak this number. If you can afford more, reduce the number. If you're finding that your total expenses now exceed your income, you can increase the number to somewhere between 11 and 12. For example, we could make it 11.3, which would reduce the amount each month. But it would still give us a bigger total at the end of the year. You could try 11.5 or 11.8. Ultimately, you want a number smaller than 12. Now you can set out your budget. This is an example of a typical family budget. See here at the top, we've got weekly, fortnightly, monthly, quarterly, and yearly. So each of these columns allows for expenses based on those timeframes to be put in. So you might have monthly expense, you'd put that in the monthly column, a quarterly expense in that column, yearly expense, etc. And then the bold is where that's placed, and then to work out the other columns, you're just going to divide by the appropriate amount or multiply by the appropriate amount. Now we've got lots of things listed in here. We've got things like public transport, loan repayment, bank fees, things like a furniture fund or renovation fund if you're saving up for something in the future. Definitely an emergency fund. They've got a gift fund, swimming lessons, Christmas club, it's always important, our road tolls, professional development, hair and beauty, healthcare, childcare, school fees. So a whole range of expenses that can be covered. We also have their managed funds under investments. So you can have investments, maybe you're deciding to buy shares frequently, or as we do, managed funds, or maybe it's for investing in property or saving for your first home. So there are other investments, so putting money aside for things. And then right down the bottom, money left for saving, that might be money left for spending, and that's just getting the income minus your expenses, minus your investments, and that's the money left over. I'm hoping you found that really useful. My next video will be about how you can automate your budget so you can spend less time worrying about money and more time living a better life. If you've liked this video, hit the like button. Also subscribe and turn on the bell for notifications of new videos. Leave a comment below if you have any suggestions for future videos or topics you might be struggling with or are interested in knowing more about. Until next time, keep being a better Aussie man.